Heads up for the Northeast, a major winter storm is headed your way today. Some more promising vaccine developments and Tom Cruise unleashed. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Wednesday, December 16th. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo.
Morning, Jill. December 16th. This month is really cruising along here, huh?
It really is. Let's start, though, today with something a bit different. Millions of people in the Northeast could see more snow in the next 36 hours than they saw all last winter. It's a significant nor'easter bearing down on the Northeast, starting with icy conditions this morning in Virginia. It's going to turn into a snow as the system just moves north today. Blizzard conditions, strong winds, coastal flooding are in the forecast from the D.C. metro area up to New England through tomorrow. New York City is expected to see about a foot of snow, with the first flakes appearing this afternoon. So, Carlo, I think we got a grand total of like 4 inches last winter. So we'll probably beat that by dinner time tonight.
Yeah, and actually, I just looked at the latest forecast, and the system has shifted a little bit. So Long Island's actually going to get less than we're going to get here in New York, which is not usually how that works. But yeah, this storm is moving.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. This storm is moving fast. That's a good sign in terms of keeping snowfall totals down a bit. It's not going to be like one of these big snowmageddon situations here. We're going to be sort of in and out of this thing. But basically, yeah, if you live from about Richmond, Virginia, up to Portland, Maine, you're in the line of fire here. So be careful out there today. Get your errands done early, your shopping done early if you have to. If you have to go out there, and don't be a hero with the shoveling. And I'm specifically talking to you, Dad.
It's funny because this is my first winter in the suburbs. And I think the experience with snow is so drastically different when you're in a city like New York City, where it's basically a non-event. I mean, it snows, it's pretty coming down, and then it's gone within hours, regardless of how much snow you get. It's just like magically disappears or turns into slush and makes it miserable to walk around. But you can get around. And my husband actually said to me, he's like, should we be stocking up on stuff? Like, is this,
you guys are such
we don't
newbies.
Know how to handle.
We're like, and I'm like,
oh, exactly. And I'm like, do we just get milk and eggs, even though we don't even use that? I mean, it's well, actually,
I don't even own a snow shovel.
Carlo, we were talking about this yesterday as well, and Mayor de Blasio, he said he thinks snow days are effectively a thing of the past, and that remote learning has shown that kids can still be in school virtually even the next time there's a snowstorm post-pandemic. So even when kids are back in school 5 days a week, they're not going to get snow days. That's terrible.
I couldn't believe he said that. I mean, so we heard from one of our listeners, Ryan, who wrote in overnight to show us what one school in Illinois is saying, which is sort of the same thing. It's that snow days are going to be remote learning days to make sure that summer break isn't impacted. I don't know. That just seems stupid. It's like I think if you should get a snow day, if you're, even if it's remote, like the snow days are like part of childhood. Right? Like that shouldn't be something that just dies on the vine because of like our ability to do everything virtually now. I don't know. That just makes me kind of sad.
There was nothing better. I feel like we used to watch the scroll on the bottom of the TV to see which school. And then I remember the phone would sometimes ring and you're like, is this it? And you'd get so excited. I mean, that's at least how it went down in my family.
Yeah, mom would be like, okay, you can go back to bed. No school or 2-hour delay.
Oh, the 2-hour delay is the worst because you still need to go. Just cancel.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Some updates on the vaccine race. The FDA saying that its internal analysis shows the Moderna coronavirus vaccine is highly effective, and this sets up an emergency authorization that could come as soon as this Friday. So that would make 2 vaccines available to the public in the coming weeks and months. The problem is that the White House has only locked in enough of those 2 drugs to cover 150 million Americans through June. The administration is reportedly working on a plan to force Pfizer's suppliers to free up more of the raw materials that would allow the company to produce tens of millions of additional doses. So wait, they only got 50 million of the Moderna vaccine?
So they have 150. They have enough of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines to get to vaccinate 150 million people, which is less than half of the country. So I'm not exactly sure. What is that? 100 million from Pfizer, 50 million from Moderna, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just not enough. So look, I think that putting that aside for a second, the Moderna news is very good. By the way, something I learned yesterday: Moderna, the name Moderna stands for modified RNA. Did you know that?
I did not. So that's the
Way to
basis of
go.
their entire company, you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And their ticker is mRNA. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting, but maybe not. Um, but one of the things that I learned from the FDA release on this Moderna vaccine yesterday has to do with one of these big questions that we've been talking about, you and I, Jill, with regard to asymptomatic spread. And there's some really encouraging details in this data. So these documents show that the Moderna vaccine, 94% effective, not just at preventing illness, but also somewhat effective, at least, in preventing a level of infection. And not only that, but there's also some level of efficacy after just the first of the two shots. So again, unclear how much effectiveness, but at least some, which is good news. But the next thing that I'm looking for when it comes to vaccines is Johnson and Johnson. We haven't heard a lot from them in a while, but they have been working on a one-shot vaccine, not using this mRNA technology. I believe they're using sort of like a more traditional vaccine technology. But if we can get that thing into the population, along with Pfizer and Moderna, that'd be huge. And that means that this thing is going to end faster than people realize. I think all normal caveats, of course, applicable there.
Is Johnson and Johnson is their vaccine mRNA also, or is it more
No,
traditional where they use a
it's
dead
yeah, yeah.
virus?
It's the dead virus thing. Yep.
Um, and that might be more palpable to people, by the way. If that, for
Sure.
anyone who's kind of in the weeds on this and doing their research and who's nervous about that mRNA technology, maybe the Johnson and Johnson will be more acceptable for them. But Johnson and Johnson this week actually cut the number of people in their ongoing trial because the virus is so prevalent that plenty of participants were getting infected naturally. The company says it's looking at early February for an emergency use authorization. So a little bit longer of a process,
Right.
but anything will help.
Yeah, and Johnson Johnson's a huge healthcare company. They know how to make vaccines. They know how to scale up production. So I think that they're sort of going to be one of these, kind of I don't know what you say, like a dark horse in this thing. Just something to keep an eye on in the coming weeks.
Moving to politics, Senator Mitch McConnell, who is the most powerful Republican in Congress, has now acknowledged and congratulated President-elect Joe Biden on his electoral college win. McConnell's reportedly been telling other Republicans to give up on trying to change the outcome of the election so that the party could present a united front to the new Congress next year. Meanwhile, President-elect Biden has picked Pete Buttigieg to be his transportation secretary and Jennifer Granholm, who's the former governor of Michigan, to be energy secretary. Jenny G. I used to cover her when I was a local reporter in Lansing, Michigan, many, many moons ago. And then
I was going to
after
ask you
she
your thoughts
became,
on this. Yeah.
yeah, after she was governor, she became, a talking head on cable news, right? I'd see her all the time on MSNBC. You kind of always knew she was headed for something else, and she had a spotlight. And now Governor Gretchen Whitmer, excuse me, perhaps following in her footsteps, another popular Democratic female governor for Michigan.
It's funny that Michigan has
On a
sort of become
personal
this
level,
like,
forgetting politics, I always liked Jennifer Granholm. I was super young. I was a politics reporter. I've interviewed her so many times, and she was always really accessible and really nice. Again, politics aside, I thought
yeah,
a
yeah,
nice
no,
person.
it's sort of, I was just going to say, it's kind of funny that Michigan is becoming sort of this like staging ground for Democratic politicians, right? And I hadn't really thought about that. Mayor Pete, by the way, he would be the first openly gay cabinet secretary if confirmed. Now, whatever you think of him, Pete Buttigieg, that is, I think it's probably safe to say that he is going places within the Democratic Party. He, of course, is not qualified for this job. I mean, just, technically. Um, Not that really matters. I mean, I think, it's not like he would be the first or the last unqualified cabinet secretary. I mean, Rick Perry is the Secretary of Energy. Like, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. But I guess I'm just a little bit biased on this because I was a little invested in this pick. I was hoping that Biden was going to pick somebody who came from like a big city like a New York with a big public transportation system that would fight for the MTA here in New York. So I don't know if Pete's going to do that, but he will definitely be sort of leading the charge on an infrastructure bill if he's head of the transportation department.
Pete Buttigieg, you knew he was going to get something because he has been the biggest surrogate during the whole campaign.
Yeah.
He'd be the person who went on Fox News and would be the one voice that would just really advocate for Joe Biden. He's been on the record as saying, but back during the campaign, he was saying, we need high-speed rails. He wants to bring our transportation. He's like, I don't even care. We may not hit Japan, right? Japan has high-speed rails and really, really good public transportation. He's like, I'd take Italy. Can we just get the public transportation of Italy?
Yeah.
So we'll see what he brings to the table. A lot of the stuff with the MTA, though, I think is going to just come down to Congress more than this cabinet pick. We'll see if Congress has an appetite to fund the MTA and Amtrak and some of these these agencies that are in desperate need of money.
Right.
Okay, it's coming up on now or never for lawmakers to come to an agreement on a stimulus package. Congressional leaders stayed late last night, both sides voicing optimism that a deal is within reach. The consensus appears to be to attach relief measures to a spending bill that needs to pass by Friday that would keep the government from shutting down. Beyond that, details on the size and the specifics of what would be in the package have not been made public, but they are clearly making significant progress for the first time in a while.
Yeah, so we were just talking about the MTA. It sounds like the breakthrough that both sides had is that they're going to punt on the liability shields that Republicans wanted and the state and local aid that Democrats wanted, and focus on unemployment benefits, vaccine distribution, and small businesses. So that's good. Look, anything's better than nothing at this point. I know that sometimes I focus on this, like the messaging or like the framing of this stuff, but I still hate that we just call this like stimulus, right? Stimulus implies that we're doing something to sort of like juice the economy because of some sort of I don't know, some sort of credit risk or something. That's not it. Like this is a moral. The economy, the broader economy is fine in terms of the fundamentals, right? So this isn't 2008. There isn't this massive contagion happening like in the housing market. What this is a moral imperative to help people who are suffering from no part of, nothing that they did themselves. It should be called like a survival bill more than a stimulus bill. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse there, but I do think it's good that they're at least going to get something done. But back to what we were saying about the MTA. I mean, the thing that people don't understand, I think, is that an agency like the MTA moves way more people every day than the TSA does, than the airlines do, right? And it doesn't. I don't think it gets the love that it needs, from the federal government for all sorts of reasons. But those are the agencies like the MTA, like Amtrak. These are the ones that we really need help right now. And I don't know if they're not going to get it in this bill. Hopefully, it's coming after Biden is sworn in.
And the question is, at what point, how much are they going to raise? How much, if they don't get help in the way of some sort of package, some sort of help from Congress, are they going to be forced to just raise subway fares? And how expensive are tolls going to get going on the bridges and tunnels? It's, they're going to have to figure it out somehow. How many people are going to lose their jobs?
Yep.
All right, switching gears, Mackenzie Scott. If you've heard that name, she's the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos and one of the richest people in the world. She's disclosed that she's been giving away $1 billion a month to charity, $4 billion in the last 4 months, spread to about 400 nonprofit groups. In a post on Medium, she says she's been donating money to historically Black colleges and universities, food banks, YMCAs, and she's targeting organizations that help underprivileged and chronically underfunded communities. The philanthropic world is said to be amazed at the speed at which she's giving away her fortune.
This is how you give away money. So take note. If you ever become a billionaire, and you're listening out there, hopefully you'll remember us in your philanthropic giving. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, like it's really remarkable what she's doing. So she gave, just as an example here, $40 million to Morgan State University. So that's just that's going to double the endowment of that public school. It's not Harvard. It's not MIT. This is a school that educates lower income students for a reasonable price, and they are now not going to have to worry about fundraising. That's the kind of impactful giving that she's doing, and I think she deserves a lot of credit for. She has signed the Giving Pledge, by the way, which her ex-husband Jeff Bezos has not. The Giving Pledge is that big agreement. I think Warren Buffett started it back 12 years ago, basically asking billionaires to give away the vast majority of their wealth before they die. And I never really understood why Bezos didn't sign that, or why anyone wouldn't sign that. Because, I mean, you're talking about, these people have so much money that you couldn't possibly come close to spending it, yourself or your family or your friends. So I've never really understood that. But I guess that's why I would be a bad billionaire.
The one thing I'll say about Jeff Bezos, Carlo, and not judging whether this is right or wrong, but he gives a lot of his money from Amazon, from his Amazon fortune, to his space exploration company, Blue Origin.
Right, yeah.
The same way, actually, Elon Musk, I think, gives a lot of his money over to SpaceX and maybe the Boring Company and some of his other pet projects. Which I guess SpaceX, you could argue, not a pet project anymore, but I believe that's what Jeff Bezos, that's where he puts a lot of his money, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe that'll come in handy if we have to evacuate Earth, and he's the only one who can get us to wherever we're going.
In an audio recording leaked to a British tabloid, Tom Cruise can be heard screaming at the production crew of Mission Impossible 7 for breaking COVID-19 protocols. Cruise has reportedly been personally enforcing social distancing rules on set and became enraged when he saw two crew members standing next to each other at a computer screen. The production's been postponed and moved several times, and Cruise said that he wants to be the gold standard for how to make a movie during a pandemic.
I just love this story so much. I think that you should hire Tom Cruise to follow you around with a bullhorn, yelling at the people at the Cheddar office who aren't wearing masks. That's just like it's a great visual. But if you haven't listened to this recording, I just want to read a bit from it. So I'm quoting Tom Cruise here. "If I see you do it again, you're effing gone. And if anybody in this crew does it, that's it. And you too, and you too. And you, don't you ever effing do it again. We are creating thousands of jobs, you mother effers. That's it. No apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their effing homes because our industry is shut down. We're not shutting this effing movie down. Is it understood? If I see it again, you're effing gone." So apologies for the curse words there that I did not say, but I think, look, this is. Maybe I'm a Tom Cruise stan, and I do love him, and I love his movies. But this is him being like, look, it's on all of us to do our part, right? Like, this is, Jill, what you and I have been saying for months now. Like, this sense of personal responsibility that we don't ever hear from our politicians. So I think it's, I just love, even if he was maybe being a little brash in how he said it. Good for him, right?
I love it. I want that recording. I think I'm just going to play it. Forget getting Tom Cruise himself. I think everywhere should just be playing that on blast. They should have that running on the subway. They should have that running, in restaurants. And,
just do your part. Let's get through this. It is a crazy year when you find yourself nodding along with something that Tom Cruise did, though, I got to say, right?
Speaking of celebs, by the way, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's transformation from royals to media moguls continues with the announcement from Spotify that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have signed a podcasting deal. The couple's going to be producing podcasts that tell uplifting and entertaining stories exclusively for the streaming platform. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. It's probably safe to say it's going to be for a lot of money. They have their own production company now called Archewell. I think that's how you pronounce it, named after their son, Archie.
Yeah, you think they're going to be making more money than we do? Get off of our turf, though, Harry and Meghan. This is, we don't need more competition. It is funny, though, on this. It's really interesting how people who have theoretically had jobs with a ton of power and influence are finding that they can be more effectual with these media gigs, whether it's producing for Netflix or Spotify. Think about the Obamas, the royals now. I don't know. I just find that kind of interesting. That said, this is also just an easy way to make a lot of money without probably having to do all that much work. I don't think that Meghan Markle is going to be personally writing or producing or editing a podcast anytime soon. But maybe, what do I know?
I mean, look, she's talent, so to speak, by definition, right? Like that's her. She does voiceovers. She does the Disney voiceover for that Elephants film, which we watch a lot in this house. I'm with you. It is frustrating. I feel like this is how actors and actresses must feel when they find a social media influencer getting a part in a show or a movie, and they're probably like, "Get off our turf! We went to acting school. We did this." I've
like
been waitressing for X amount of years.
It's like how they're casting those TikTok stars in the She's All That remake. It's like,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
You couldn't find any actual actors for that role? Yeah.
All right, we're going to leave it there with Carlo and I just being bitter about all the celebs doing podcasts. And everyone have a great day. Stay safe in the snow. That's what you need to know for Wednesday, December 16th.
See you guys tomorrow.